My name is Nicholas Anderson. I'm 21 years old. After graduating from college, I moved away from my hometown and started living alone. My job keeps me pretty busy, and I didn't really have any reason to go back home. However, one day I got assigned to a 2-day business trip. Coincidentally, the destination was near my parents' house. So I decided to drop by and visit. That's when I reunited with Sandra, my father's stepdaughter from his remarriage. At that time, I never imagined that this reunion would become an event that would change my life. Nicholas, I have an urgent request. Can you handle this business trip? My boss asked, and I felt a sudden pressure. A new environment and dealing with problems on my own made the trip a nerve-wracking prospect for me. The destination is near your parents' place, so I thought it might be convenient for you, he added. Hearing it was close to my parents' house eased my tension a bit as it reminded me of the home I hadn't visited in a long time. Get ready as soon as you can. We're counting on you. My boss's comments restored some of my confidence, and I solidified my resolve for the trip. At the same time, I decided to contact my parents. My mother passed away before I started elementary school. My father wasn't adept at juggling work, childcare, and household chores, so I often stayed at my grandmother's house. Life changed when my father decided to remarry. Your new mom is bringing a daughter who is 5 years older than you. Is that okay? He told me, mixing anticipation with anxiety about who was coming. On the day we first met, his new wife was a gentle person, and my worries about a new family quickly faded. Her daughter's name was Sandra. Sandra was a quiet girl with clear, beautiful eyes. We spent our days together as a family, and our bond as siblings grew stronger. However, as we reached adolescence, spending time with an opposite-sex sibling became awkward, and we naturally started spending less time together. What kept things from getting awkward between us was probably our shared hobby and the presence of Max. Max was our family dog. The times I spent walking and playing in the yard with Max and Sandra were just everyday moments, but looking back now, they were happy times. Even now, the doghouse still remains in our yard, even though Max is gone. On the first day of my business trip, after finishing my work, I nervously headed toward the town filled with nostalgic sights. Seeing the old doghouse in the yard brought a smile to my face. When I opened the front door, my father and stepmother greeted me with familiar smiles that wrapped me in warmth. However, that wasn't all. Sandra was there too, with her long hair gently swaying in the breeze coming through the door. She welcomed me with a graceful smile. Even after all these years, her beauty remained unchanged. Hi, Nicholas. Good to see you. How was your work today? She said with a gentle and comforting voice that reached my ears. The tension within me began to dissolve in the comfort of being with my family. That night, we all gathered for dinner, spending time together as a family of 4 after so long. The next day, after finishing my work, I decided to go to the park for a change of pace. As I walked around, I couldn't help but glance at familiar places that held many memories. Entering the park where I used to play, I noticed a couple holding hands approaching from the opposite direction. I saw someone that made me stop in my tracks. Hey Nicholas, it's you. You finished work. Sandra greeted me with the same kind smile as the previous day and introduced the man beside her as her boyfriend. This is Larry, we're dating. Sandra, who is this? Larry asked. He is Nicholas, my stepbrother. He's back home for work. I see, Larry said, extending his hand confidently for a handshake. Feeling a bit awkward, I shook his hand. Sandra's happy expression and Larry's confident demeanor made me feel out of place. Out of habit, I exchanged business cards with Larry and quickly left the scene. On Sunday, my day off, I was still wrapped in my blanket in my old room at my parents' house when Sandra woke me up abruptly. Sandra, why are you here? Seeing her nearly panicking, even more than my groggy self, somehow made me calm down. I slowly sat up in bed and took a deep breath. What's up? What happened? She sat on the bed beside me and opened her mouth with a worried expression. I've been assigned by the principal to explain things to new parents at the preschool. But I'm not confident. I don't know how to get the message across. Sandra is a teacher at the nearby preschool. Because she's dedicated and proud of her work, she's probably feeling the pressure. You'll be fine. You've been a teacher for years now. You're a pro, so explaining things to beginners should be easy, I said, trying to be playful. It seemed to work as her expression softened a bit. First, try to put yourself in their shoes, and then speak with confidence. I explained the presentation skills I developed as a business person to her. I wasn't sure how helpful it would be, but I could see her expression gradually brightening. By the time I finished explaining, my stomach started growling and Sandra noticed. "Let me make you something, or maybe Mom's already made something. Give me one moment," she said as she hurried to the kitchen. Honestly, seeing the usually confident and graceful Sandra in that state made her seem quite endearing. "Mom's made breakfast, so let's go out for lunch. Do you know any good places?" she asked. "A new restaurant opened up a short walk from here. I heard from the moms at the press school that it's really good because it is kid-friendly." I was surprised she talked about such things, but it made sense given her dedication and the trust she earned from the parents. The fact that she was chosen to handle this orientation was a testament to her character. The restaurant Sandra took me to had a warm wooden interior, a play area for kids, and a menu with a wide variety of dishes. "What should I get?" Sandra pondered the menu with delight. I noticed someone who looked like Larry through the window. It wasn't odd to see him on a Sunday, but it felt off seeing him alone in such a restaurant. Feeling a bit uneasy, I turned back to Sandra. "This looks good. What are you getting?" "I'll have the pasta." "I'll go with the hamburger." By the time our meals arrived, I'd forgotten all about seeing Larry. That night, Sandra and I sat in a corner of the yard reminiscing under the starry sky. Time had flown by as I helped her practice her explanation. "We used to play a lot in this yard, didn't we?" "Right. You and Max used to roll around like a ball. I miss him." I sighed deeply. "That was probably the happiest time of my life." "I agree with you. Those were happy times. But these moments now are important too." Our conversation paused, and a quiet night spread across the yard. Suddenly, Sandra's arm reached out and touched my hair. "Hey, your hair really is just like Max's, isn't it? I always wondered why you kept patting my head when we were kids. Was it because it reminded you of him?" "Oh, you caught me," she said with a mischievous smile. Her playful side made my heart feel light. That night, I decided to drive Sandra back to her apartment. Her apartment had a quiet, peaceful atmosphere with a small houseplant by the entrance. "Thanks for driving me home. You should come over sometime." "Sure, another time. Good luck with the orientation." "I'll try just the way you taught me," she replied, her smile filled with gratitude, making me feel a bit bashful. However, what happened next was a shock. My business trip was at its midpoint. Even though I hadn't made plans with Sandra for the day, I was curious about how her orientation went and whether it was a success. I decided to invite her to dinner. There was no response when I rang the doorbell. Thinking it might be broken, I knocked on the door but still got no reply. When I turned the doorknob, it opened without resistance. Fearing there might be a burglar or intruder, I clenched my fists and entered her apartment. The place was furnished simply and neatly organized. I quickly found Sandra sitting in a corner of the room, her eyes filled with tears and her cheeks streaked with tear tracks. Trying to calm my racing heart, I walked over to her and spoke softly. "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" She just shook her head silently, not saying a word. Not knowing what else to do, I sat down next to her. I could see her react slightly. After a while, she slowly began to speak. It was all a lie. The despair in her voice weighed heavily on my heart. "What do you mean by a lie?" I asked, and she wiped her tears with her sleeve. She had a pained expression on her face. At today's orientation, Larry showed up. He brought his wife and kids. His name, his job, everything was a lie. I can't believe it. It was all fabricated. Tears started to well up in her eyes again. In that moment, I felt something inside me break, like everything just popped. She continued, her voice trembling. "Nicholas, please, just once." Finally looking at me, she roughly wiped her flowing tears with her sleeve. "Just once more. I want to walk Max's old path with you." She couldn't sleep or stay cooped up in her room in this state. If reminiscing about our childhood could ease her mind, I was ready to go. We walked down the path lined with streetlights, the path we used to walk with our beloved dog. It had fewer vacant lots now. Back then, Sandra matched her pace to mine, but now I was matching mine to hers. This path felt so much longer when we were kids, but it's actually quite short. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was gaining strength. "Max loved you so much. He was really attached to you. He seemed to like Mom too. He was just a ladies' man." Sandra let out a small laugh. That smile left a gentle warmth in my heart. "This feels so nostalgic," she said, reaching out to me. Your hair really does feel just like Max's. It's comforting. Just this once, okay? Sure, I replied. Her touch was delicate, conveying both kindness and sadness. Each time her fingers traced through my hair, something deep inside me began to warm up. I felt my feelings for her growing stronger. I love you, Sandra, I whispered silently in my heart. Memories of the past and her smiling face kept flooding my mind. I realized I was in love with her. It wasn't long after that Larry began stalking Sandra. He showed up at the press school after work, inviting her out to dinner. She refused, but Larry insisted he had to apologize, and she reluctantly agreed. At dinner he said, "I'm going to leave my wife. I want to be happy with you. Please marry me." His selfish words were unbelievable. I could no longer believe the words of such a man, but Sandra's heart was swayed. She came to consult me, aware of the circumstances. Hearing her story made my blood boil. I pulled out the business card Larry had given me and slammed it on the table. How many lies are written on this card? Can you really trust a man like that when he says he's going to leave his wife? Nicholas, he's a liar who prepared all this for his own selfish reasons. He has a wife and kids, yet he approaches you. That's the truth about him. Sandra's eyes filled with both frustration and determination. I could see she was resolute. Even if Larry lost his temper, I wasn't entirely without confidence. I was ready to confront him to protect Sandra. Thank you, Nicholas. I won't believe him anymore. This ends here. Her hand trembled slightly, but there was new hope in her eyes. Deciding to cut ties with Larry brought a sense of relief to my heart. Nevertheless, Larry persisted in stalking Sandra. He started waiting outside her apartment instead of the press school. When Sandra firmly rejected him, he only smirked. His harassment continued, and when Sandra came to me for help again, she had dark circles under her eyes. This morning, a potted plant was broken by the front door. I had to clean it up. There's no proof it was Larry, but I understand. I'll come with you tonight. As we approached her apartment, Sandra looked increasingly anxious. In the dim light, I could see Larry waiting by the entrance. He stepped in front of me as I walked up to him. Aren't you married with kids? Stop approaching my sister. Larry scoffed with a cold smile and started moving towards Sandra. I pulled her behind me to protect her. If you hurt her anymore, I won't forgive you. Won't forgive me? What are you going to do about it? Larry picked up a child's bat that was lying by the entrance and swung it without hesitation. The sound of the bat striking the concrete echoed loudly. As he raised the bat, his figure was illuminated by the moonlight, his eyes filled with madness, sending chills down my spine. He swung the bat at me. I reacted instantly, using a karate block to catch the bat. The impact sent a dull ache through my right arm. Despite the pain, I didn't take my eyes off him. Holding the bat with my right arm, I struck him with my other hand. He groaned and collapsed to the ground, the bat rolling away. I took a deep breath and kept a close watch on him. He staggered to his feet and walked away from us. As his shadow faded into the distance, the pain and numbness in my arm became more apparent. Once I saw Sandra's relieved smile, I could stand it. The sound of sirens approached, likely called by a neighbor. As I stood there in a daze, Sandra hugged me. A doctor examined me, and fortunately, no broken bones were found in my arm. Still, the bruises and the vivid purple of my skin were hard to miss. Our parents came to pick us up, and both Sandra and I decided to stay at their house. On the way home and after we arrived, Sandra kept thanking and apologizing to me repeatedly. It wasn't until around midnight that we could talk normally. You still remember your karate moves? Yeah, I guess so. Sandra continued nostalgically. Do you remember the camp we went to during the training camp? Of course, that was when you mistook the coach for a ghost or something. You knocked him out with your karate move, right? I'll never forget that. That's something you should forget. She puffed out her cheeks in a slightly shy demeanor. She looked like a child. Do you remember inviting me to do something at the camp? What is it? I tilted my head in confusion. Oh man, you don't remember. Maybe I'll remember if you tell me. That's not remembering. Okay, give me a hint. A hint? Let's see. Under the beautiful starry sky, we did something together. I started to recall something. Was it the time capsule? Bingo. Sandra snapped her fingers in delight. Although I didn't remember it clearly, seeing her so happy made me realize it was an important memory for her. So Sandra, how about we go to the campsite next Sunday? On the day we arrived at the campsite, a gentle breeze made the place feel pleasant. As we dug up the time capsule, memories from the past flooded back, filling me with nostalgia. I think it was around here, Sandra said, thrusting the shovel into the ground. As we dug, an old faded capsule emerged. She eagerly picked it up and began checking its contents. Inside was an old letter I had written as a child. I want to live in a big house with Sandra and have lots of dogs. Sandra's letter was in there too. Today's camp was so much fun. I'm so happy that Nicholas invited me to do the time capsule. Let's stay close forever. I want to spend more happy times with him. We sat at the campsite under a sky full of twinkling stars. Sandra's smile outshone them all. Sandra, I need to tell you something. My heart was pounding in my chest. I really like you. Sandra's eyes widened in surprise as she stared at me. The silence that followed made the night even more still. Even though we're technically siblings, I want to build a future with you. Gradually, her eyes filled with joy and she smiled like a blooming flower. Nicholas, me too. I've always cared deeply about you too. I hugged her tightly. I hope we can walk this path together. Any future with you will be wonderful. With determination in our hearts, we took our first step towards a new chapter. Everything fell into place after that. Nervously, we told our parents and my father said, "If you both are serious, we support you. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters." Sandra thrived as a preschool teacher surrounded by children, and I found success in my career. We achieved our dream of having dogs after we got married, filling our home with smiles. The dreams in our time capsule became our reality. With Sandra's recent childbirth, we now enjoy happy days with our 2 children. My current dream is for our whole family to continue being happy together. This vacation home is exclusively for my parents. I won't let your parents use it. I was dumbfounded by my husband's remarks, having nonchalantly purchased $1 million vacation home. So that's what this is all about. Having learned his motives, I reached the end of my tether. Fine, but you're going to regret this, you know. I won't. Don't ever show your face to me again, Robert said, crossing his arms with a smug grin on his face. If that's how it is, then I won't hold back. I'll make sure he regrets it, I thought. My name is Kathy. I married my husband Robert 4 years ago, and we've been living as a couple. Neither of us have any particular hobbies, so our savings kept growing. If I had to name one indulgence, perhaps it would be brewing coffee from beans on a weekend morning. Speaking of which, your mom's birthday is coming up soon, isn't it? With a freshly brewed coffee in hand, I asked my husband. We were both in our mid-30s. Robert's parents turned 60 this year, a year ahead of my parents. How about we give them a spa retreat as a gift for their birthdays? It'd be a nice memory, don't you think? A good idea, right? When I suggested this, my husband agreed. That might be a good idea. I'll ask my parents if they want anything specific. If not, we'll give them the spa retreat. It'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I did mean it like that. I know, just joking. Next time I see my parents, I'll talk to them about it. Kathy, can you look up some good spas? Got it. How about we go on a trip too? It would be nice for a change. 2 weeks passed and my mother-in-law's birthday was fast approaching. Hey, we need to make a reservation soon. At this rate, we won't even make it for my father-in-law's birthday. Did you talk to your parents? I asked hurriedly. In response, my husband answered leisurely, "Oh, did I not tell you? I've already asked their preferences, so it's fine. We don't need to book the spa retreat." Is that so? Then it's okay, but what did they say they wanted? Eager to choose the gift together, I asked, but my husband gave me a look that suggested he found it troublesome. I'll handle everything. It's my parents' 60th birthday. You don't have to get involved, Kathy. I couldn't hide my surprise at Robert's words. He had never brushed me off like this before. That's not a nice way to say it, I said, getting emotional. Why won't you tell me? We've always chosen gifts together. Every year we had decided on gifts for each other's parents together. So why suddenly, at a significant milestone like their 60th birthday, would he say something like this? I didn't understand my husband's thinking and was frustrated. I don't like to boast, but I'm generally a mild-mannered person. I rarely raise my voice, but my husband wouldn't change his mind. In the end, Robert wouldn't tell me what his parents wanted. Since then, there's been an uncomfortable atmosphere between us, and we only communicate about necessary matters. Even when we drink coffee brewed from beans, we remain silent. The day before my mother-in-law's birthday, my husband spoke to me for the first time in a while. We're going out tomorrow to celebrate Mom's 60th birthday, so get ready, Kathy. We're staying overnight, so be prepared for that too. When he suddenly said we were going out, I panicked. What? Where are we going? If we're staying overnight, you should have said so earlier. I have a lot to prepare. I just told you, didn't I? You're definitely going to be surprised, he said, in high spirits. The next morning, we got into the car early and went to pick up my in-laws. They were very excited. I'm so excited. I never thought I'd get to celebrate my birthday like this. I really can't thank you enough, my mother-in-law gushed. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Robert. Kathy, my father-in-law added. No, happy birthday, Mom, I replied, feeling awkward because I hadn't been involved in choosing the present at all. Even when my in-laws expressed their gratitude, I could only respond vaguely. Then my husband said something surprising. Really, it's all thanks to Kathy. He was backing me up. I was really happy with my husband's consideration. We'd been at odds recently, but it felt like we could go back to our old relationship. My gloomy feelings lifted, and I decided to enjoy the journey to our destination. We arrived at a beautiful cabin nestled in the woods. The entrance was spacious, and the living room had floor-to-ceiling windows, making it quite attractive. The cabin was surrounded by trees, giving it a harmonious feel with nature. There were 3 bedrooms and even a hot tub in the bathroom. We're staying here. It's so lovely. I excitedly talked to my husband and apologized for my previous attitude. I never thought Robert would choose a place like this. I don't think I could have found such a wonderful place. Leaving it to Robert was the right decision. I'm sorry I've been so irritable lately. My excitement skyrocketed at the sight of the beautiful cabin. Then he blurted out something unexpected. It's no biggie. If I were alone, I wouldn't have been able to buy such a cabin. It's because of Kathy that I was able to buy it. What? Suddenly, I was at a loss for words. What was he talking about? As my head filled with questions, my in-laws joined the conversation. Thank you so much, Kathy. We never thought we'd get such a beautiful cabin, my mother-in-law said. We were thinking about setting up a new home when we turned 60 and even considered living together. But remember, we decided not to live together, right? So we thought, we'd love a cabin, and we talked to Robert about it. From the beginning of our marriage, it's true that I declined the offer to live together. I wanted to enjoy our life as a couple, and my in-laws were still in good health, so I thought it was too early for us to live together. Robert agreed with my thoughts, and we decided to live together when my in-laws began to have difficulty with their lives. But I never expected them to ask for a new home as a present for their 60th birthday, especially a cabin. That was going too far. Trying to control my rising panic, I asked my husband, Robert, this is a joke, right? There's no way we could afford to buy such a lovely cabin. What's the point in springing a surprise on me? It's mother-in-law's birthday. The surprise should be for her. It's not a joke. This is a genuine cabin that we bought. What? Upon hearing my husband's reply, everything went dark before my eyes. While I was in a state of shock, he continued, Man, it really saved us. They said I couldn't get a mortgage on my own income. It was a good decision to get a joint mortgage. Hold on a minute. I didn't hear anything about this, I exclaimed. I just told you, he replied nonchalantly. And it's not a bad thing for you, Kathy, is it? You just said it was a lovely cabin. It's ours. That's not the issue, is it? How much did this vacation home cost? My frustration was palpable. He dropped a surprising fact. $1 million. What? $1 million? I was stunned. It was for my parents' 60th birthday. I thought we'd splurge a bit, he said. The amount was more than I could have ever imagined, leaving me dizzy. As if to add insult to injury, my husband began to spill another astonishing fact. We couldn't get a loan for $1 million property in both our names, so I used all the money we've been saving since our marriage, the joint account, as a down payment, he confessed. What? By this point, I was beyond shocked and just plain dumbfounded. How could he be so selfish without even consulting me? I couldn't understand it at all. Despite my shock, my husband continued nonchalantly. Well, it's already bought. Can't do anything about it now. Besides, I took into consideration your option of not living together. Isn't that good enough? In this vacation home, we can do whatever we want. Our vacation times will be more fun, won't they? His carefree attitude was nothing short of exasperating. But now that it had come to this, there was nothing we could do. Just as Robert said, this vacation home was indeed lovely, and our holiday enjoyment would increase. Fine, it's already bought, so there's nothing to be done. But you could have at least consulted me, I muttered. At that, my husband brightened up and laughed. That's more like it. I should have consulted you. I apologize. I wanted it to be a surprise for you too, Kathy. You're quite something, aren't you? Without my knowledge, Robert had gotten a joint mortgage and used our joint savings, but luckily, we didn't have any big expenses coming up. I earned significantly more than Robert and had my own savings. Let's just accept it and think of it as a good purchase. Feeling resolved, I decided to enjoy the grand celebration for my mother-in-law's birthday party and a 2-day stay at the villa. Once home, I brewed a coffee and indulged in the memories of our villa stay. It was surprising, but the villa was really splendid. It had a wood-burning stove in the living room, which would be enjoyable in winter. Feeling happy, I spoke to Robert. Hey, when are we going back to the villa? I want to get some new dishes for the villa. Yeah, I'll check with my parents. Can't we go by ourselves? Well, the villa is technically in our names, but it was a present for my parents' 60th anniversary. It'd be wrong if they had plans, right? I had a bad feeling. Even though it was in our names, I thought it might practically become my in-laws' property. I quickly suggested, as it's our villa, we can invite my parents too, right? Yeah, if they're available, he answered non-committally. But he didn't refuse. That was a relief. The villa wouldn't become my in-laws' property, but that was too optimistic. For the past 6 months, I had not been allowed to stay at the villa once. I go there, but I can't stay overnight. I drop my in-laws off at the villa, prepare food, and then have to return home. The next day, I pick them up from the villa, clean up, and drive them back. It's been like this for 6 months. Despite my many complaints, Robert always had some excuse and sometimes even yelled at me. But today, I'm not giving up because soon it will be my parents' birthday. Hey, Robert, my father's birthday is in 2 months. We can invite them to the villa, right? It's our villa. I emphasized our villa and appealed to Robert. His reply was the same as always. If my parents don't have plans. That again, it's always the same. We haven't stayed at the villa once in the 6 months since we bought it. It's always your parents who get priority. It's our villa, we should be the priority. Plus, I'm also paying the mortgage and the down payment. My parents should be able to stay too. Today, I'm not backing down. I put my foot down more than usual. Robert frowned and replied, "Shut up. That vacation house is for my parents only. I won't let your parents use it." I suppose that was part of your plan all along, wasn't it? No wonder you bought the vacation house without telling me. The tolerance I had shown until now snapped in my heart, making a sound as if something had broken. I'll never forgive you. Don't think you can get away with such selfish behavior. I proposed the following to my husband. Fine, if that's how it is, I won't hold back any longer. Let's get a divorce. What the hell? You're such a petty woman. Well, whatever. I'm quite appreciated by my parents for buying that vacation home, and I'm sure my mom would do the housework. I won't get in trouble at all without you. Of course, if we're getting a divorce, I won't let you use that vacation house. Still okay with you? My husband had a triumphant look on his face, crossing his arms with satisfaction. I felt pathetic for falling for such a man's smooth talk, but it's too late to regret it now. All that's left is to get my revenge. I lowered my voice and put pressure on my husband. You sure you're not going to regret this? Like hell I will. Fine, it's settled then. Don't ever show up in front of me again. The next day, I filed for divorce. It was accepted without issue, and I decided to head back to my parents' house. The call from Robert to my parents' house came a few months later. When I answered the phone, he was in a panic. Is that you, Kathy? What do you want? We have nothing left to talk about, I replied coldly. In response, he shouted frantically, I tried to call your cell phone. Why didn't you pick up? Some person claiming to be your lawyer came to my house today. Hey, this is something you asked for, right? Can you explain it properly to me? What don't you understand? It's exactly as the lawyer said. Since we're divorced, I don't intend to pay the mortgage. If you don't comply, I'm considering selling the vacation house. That's all. But that vacation house is in both our names. Even if we're divorced, it's only natural for you to keep paying the mortgage, right? He pleaded, sounding desperate. I calmly replied, despite being in both our names, I'm not allowed to use it, right? So why do I have to keep paying the mortgage? That's what doesn't make sense to me. But it's a shared property. You should be the one paying. This is going nowhere. That's why I asked a lawyer. If you're going to insist on your point of view, I'm hanging up. If there's anything else, please contact my lawyer. I don't have time to talk to this unreasonable man. I have my own business to take care of. Hold on, wait up. I messed up. Let's use the vacation house alternately. Okay, that should be fine, right? You're saying keep paying the mortgage and I'll let you use it in turns. I have no attachments to that vacation house anymore. After all, I already bought a new one. Wait, what? Yes, I gifted the vacation house to my parents for their 60th birthday. It's not exactly a $1 million estate, but a cozy cottage that they love. Are we done here? I don't have time to be chit-chatting with you. Hold on, please. I quit my job. I know that. What? How? It was probably my father who caused it. My father is an executive in a top-tier company. He has many acquaintances, presidents, and executives of other companies. Robert's company president was one of them. Angry at Robert's treatment toward me, my father must have talked to Robert's company president about it. The president expressed his anger, saying, "How can we have such a person in our company?" I don't know the details from there, but I had heard that Robert chose to resign on his own. I'm sure Robert's company president did something behind the scenes considering the future. Hey, help me out, Robert pleaded with a tear-choked voice. I started receiving contentious looks from my coworkers. I chose to quit. I found a new job, but the salary is less than before. I can't keep up with the mortgage payments on my home. Your father is the cause, right? Then isn't it his responsibility to continue paying the mortgage? He's so self-centered. How much further will he go to satisfy himself? I was at my limit with his selfish comments. Sure, my father might have caused you to quit your job, but the one who created the initial cause was you, Robert, wasn't it? Don't twist it to suit your narrative. You're the one who's wrong for touching our shared property because you wanted to look good to your parents. You've brought this on yourself. I didn't think it would turn out like this. You reap what you sow. I hope you suffer in the depths of mortgage hell, you selfish jerk. Wait, please. I heard his desperate cry, but I hung up the phone without waiting. In the months following, I negotiated through a lawyer and finally got out of the mortgage for that vacation house. In the end, Robert couldn't continue paying the mortgage on his own, and the vacation house seemed to be sold. Because the property's value had decreased, Robert had ended up in debt. Even his in-laws were flabbergasted, and he is reportedly living a ragged life in a cheap apartment now. His parents, too, are now the talk of the neighborhood for losing the vacation house they were always boasting about. On the other hand, I'm leading busy, fulfilling days as the vice president of my father's company. Now, the happiest times are when the three of us visit the vacation house on our days off and relax with a cup of coffee. Dropping out of middle school can seem sketchy, right? Isn't it? There's a reason for that. No need to explain. Our worlds are just different. Okay, you don't have to put it like that. I'm 33 years old, married, and have been with my husband David for 10 years. We have a first-grade daughter named Betty, making us a family of 3. I've loved drawing since I was a kid, and now I work in the arts. Currently, I'm pregnant with our second child. As my belly grows, each day becomes more challenging. Despite his busy schedule, David tries to come home early and even takes time off work to handle chores and childcare for me. Life was good for our little family, but something started bothering me recently. We live on the first floor of a high-rise apartment building. The other day, while coming back from shopping, I saw a woman moving into our building. It turns out she's Emma, a classmate from middle school. I hadn't seen Emma since a get-together right after middle school. When she noticed me, she said, "Wait, Mary, you live here too?" "Yeah, what about you?" Moving in today." Apparently, Emma had just moved into the building. Her face fell when she realized I was also a resident, living in the same high-rise as a dropout. Unbelievable. You see, I'm a dropout, just like Emma said. I had reasons not to pursue further education after middle school, but I never told Emma. The last time we met, Emma had mocked me for being a high school dropout, and it seemed like nothing had changed. She was still belittling me. Annoyed, I listened as Emma continued, "So what floor are you on?" "I'm on 35. I realized Emma was trying to show off based on the floor number in the apartment building. I answered truthfully, "I'm on the first floor here." Emma's face lit up with smug satisfaction. "First floor? Makes sense. You're a dropout after all." I'll have to invite you up to my 35th floor place sometime. Great views, you know. Emma continued to boast. Emma apparently worked at a major corporation after graduating from college up until last year. Now she plans to start her own business and use this high-rise apartment as both home and office. So that basically makes me the CEO. Oh, what about you? Do you work? When Emma asked, I began to explain my work. Yeah, I'm in the art business. Emma interrupted. Art? You mean like drawing? That's a job. Feeling belittled, I snapped back. I've turned what I love into a career, and it is a real job. Emma ignored me, saying, well, it must be some nice working within the household income. What's your goal, like $900 a month? I just listened in silence, not having the energy. People like you who drop out live in a different world from elites like me. Just then, David and our daughter Betty, dressed in work clothes, walked up. Mom. Oh, Mary, do you know each other? David asked. Emma looked him up and down and laughed. Is this your husband in work clothes? Feeling insulted, I finally snapped back. Why are you laughing? That's rude. Emma continued unapologetically. I wasn't laughing. He's just the type I would expect for a dropout like you. Two-income family on the first floor? He must not make much either. Finally, I had enough of Emma's rudeness. How dare you say that about my husband? Apologize. Emma laughed and said, why would I apologize? By the way, are you pregnant? It was then she finally noticed my pregnancy. Yes, I'm 7 months along, I replied. Must be tough financially with another child on the way. Can you even afford to live here? Emma sneered. I didn't want to hear any more of Emma's snide comments. I grabbed David and Betty and headed home. Emma called out after us, see you. Come up to the 35th floor if you ever want a good view. But I ignored her and went inside. I couldn't shake my anger at Emma all day. Why did she have to say those things? That night, after Betty had gone to sleep, David asked me what had happened. I told him about Emma, how she had made fun of me for being a dropout and belittled my work. David's face turned red, and he seemed even angrier than I was. David knew about my past, including the fact that I dropped out of school, and he chose to marry me with a complete understanding of who I am. We decided to keep our distance from Emma, but the anger towards her didn't seem to subside for a while. Luckily, we didn't run into Emma for a month, allowing us to live our lives peacefully. Then one day we received a postcard for a school reunion. I still get along well with my middle school friends, so after getting a few messages about meeting at the reunion, I decided to go. While I looked forward to catching up with friends, I was also a bit concerned about running into Emma and hearing her unwelcome comments. But thinking that after having a baby I would have fewer chances to meet my friends, I set aside my worries about Emma and decided to attend the reunion. The day of the reunion arrived. The event took place in a rented hotel ballroom. As soon as I arrived, I met up with friends I hadn't seen in years, and we immediately fell into enjoyable conversation. It had been a long time since we had all caught up, and there was so much to talk about. Our friend group has always been tight-knit regardless of gender. Some have become mothers, others fathers, and we all love catching up about our families and careers. But then, out of the blue, we heard Emma's voice from behind. Ew, breathing the same air as poor people is making me sick. As expected, Emma had shown up too. We hadn't noticed her since we were only speaking with friends we were actually close to. Emma was wearing heavy makeup and a flashy dress that seemed out of place. Both my friends and I sighed at her over-the-top appearance and her consistently bad attitude. Even back in middle school, she was self-centered and made awkward comments. She was someone we tended to avoid. Nothing has changed. Even now at 33, she is as obnoxious as ever, and we couldn't help but roll our eyes. One friend finally broke the silence. Emma, who are you calling poor? She replied, who else but Mary? She's a dropout, so she's poor and lives on the first floor. I live on the 35th. It's like a master-servant relationship. Emma laughed after saying this. A few friends were angered by her comments and confronted her. But Emma showed no signs of remorse. She continued, if you don't want to be called poor, why don't we move to an older apartment that suits you? Completely oblivious to the look she was getting, she went on to belittle me. Why don't you just leave, you $900 a month earner, from this reunion and from that fancy apartment building? Hearing this, my friends looked puzzled and asked, "Mary, do you only earn $900 a month?" I replied, "No, that's just what Emma believes." While we were talking, Emma interrupted, "What are you two whispering about?" "Mary's living comfortably on her husband's income, doing a part-time job because she's a dropout and I am a CEO. That's when a mutual classmate nearly spoke up. "Emma, do you not know Mary is a well-known artist?" Upon hearing this, Emma looked baffled and asked, "An artist? Who cares?" Not wanting to let her arrogance ruin the mood of the reunion any further, I decided to clarify. "I actually studied art in France right after middle school. I didn't complete a formal program, so you could say I dropped out." Upon hearing this, Emma scoffed. "What? Studying art is just a hobby, isn't it? You're still a dropout who ran away because you didn't want to study." Emma clearly didn't get it, so I elaborated a bit more. "I spent several years training and now I manage an art gallery while also creating my own works. Believe it or not, I have fans and I've even held my own exhibitions. Some classmates here have even bought my art." In reality, I was a young artist known within certain circles. After training in France, I returned to New York and kickstarted my career as an artist, which finally blossomed in recent years. As for David, we met at one of my exhibitions and clicked instantly, which led to marriage. Even with all this explanation, Emma still didn't seem to get it. "Come on, an exhibition is still just play, right? I'm a CEO, I'm clearly winning here." Exasperated, I replied, "This isn't about winning or losing, Emma. You may think I'm foolish for pursuing art, but I take my work seriously." Emma, not wanting to concede, fired back, "Then why are you living on the first floor? If you're making that much money, you should be living on a higher floor." "There is a reason we are living on the first floor," I explained. "We were on a different floor before, but given that I'm pregnant and elevators can take forever here, we moved to the first floor for convenience." Emma seemed unwilling to accept my explanation. My friends all knew about my career, and even classmates I wasn't particularly close to had heard I was an artist. Emma probably never considered that possibility, given that she had zero interest in art and looked down on me for being a dropout. And I had another secret. Just as I was about to reveal this, I saw David and Betty at the entrance. "Mom." Betty came running towards me, followed by David chasing her from behind. David, scratching his head, said, "Sorry about that. Got pulled into some work stuff, so I brought Betty along too." While David and I were talking, Emma blurted out, "Wait, who is this handsome man?" "Your husband. He was in work clothes last time. Why the suit now?" David was indeed dressed sharply today. Emma couldn't take her eyes off him, so different from the work clothes she saw him in before. David began greeting my friends. "Thank you for always being kind to my wife. Is everything to your satisfaction? Please let us know if there is anything you need." Just then, the organizer rushed over. "Thank you for providing this venue for free. The food and drinks are top-notch." "Really? Thank you." The truth was, this hotel belonged to David's parents, and he was now the CEO. David had generously offered the venue free of charge for the reunion. Emma's face turned pale upon hearing this. "You are a CEO's wife?" She had looked down on me as poor, but here I was, an artist and a CEO's wife. Emma seemed to be in complete shock. "Why are you, a dropout, married to someone this wealthy when an elite like me is still single? What did you do to pull this off?" Emma challenged me with a tone of bitterness. David finally noticed Emma and said, "Oh, we have met before. Sorry for being in work clothes the last time. I was helping with a neighborhood cleanup. As the owner of the high-rise apartment, it's important to maintain good relations in the community." Emma's face turned pale. "Wait, you own that high-rise? Your family owns that?" "In fact, David owns that high-rise. His family has been wealthy for generations, involved in hotel management and owning multiple properties. We live in one of those properties, the high-rise in question," I explained. Emma stood there stunned, unable to come up with a retort. David added, "Oh, by the way, we'd like to invite you to the penthouse sometime. It has a great view. You can even see the Empire State Building." Emma was shocked again. "The penthouse? But don't you guys live on the first floor?" Hearing that, I decided to tell her the truth. "I told you before, I'm pregnant, so we made the first floor our home as well. Basically, both the penthouse and the first floor are ours." Emma was speechless, her body limp with disbelief. I noticed that the friends around us had gone silent, listening intently to our conversation. Feeling like I had ruined the atmosphere of the reunion, I began to head for the exit with David and Betty in tow. As I was leaving, Emma mumbled, a dropout acting so cocky. I turned to my daughter, who could probably hear Emma's comment. What matters most is what's inside. Never look down on people, I said. Betty nodded and cheerfully replied. Then she turned to Emma and said, Emma, if you keep making faces like that, happiness will run away from you. Everyone in the room burst into laughter, and the atmosphere improved. Emma, now a laughingstock, ran out of the venue blushing. The reunion proceeded in good spirits, and I enjoyed the rest of the evening with my friends. They too had been mistreated by Emma in the past, so Betty's last words made everyone feel relieved. Months passed, and we never encountered Emma at the high-rise again. One day, when David came home, he told me that Emma had finally moved out of the luxury high-rise. According to David, it turned out Emma had been skipping rent for 3 months. They even had a lawyer come in to issue an eviction notice, and she skipped town almost overnight. Hearing this, I was flabbergasted. David mentioned that the room Emma had rented was left just as it was, furniture, clothes, and all. Apparently, she took her expensive stuff and computer but left everything else as it was. At first, I suspected something shady, but soon after, I got an update on Emma from a friend. It turns out Emma was pretending to be a successful entrepreneur, but in reality, she was practically jobless. She had some savings from her career days, allowing her to live comfortably for a while. But of course, that lifestyle couldn't last. She couldn't pay the rent anymore and had to move out. She didn't even have another place lined up, so she left her furniture and clothes behind because she didn't have the money to dispose of them. Learning the truth, I was thoroughly disgusted by how Emma remained a burden to others till the end. Emma had such a terrible personality that even in her crisis, she had no friends or colleagues who would help her. Now she's living alone in an old apartment, scraping by with part-time jobs to make ends meet. She used to brag about being a lead and look down on me, a college dropout. I bet her pride is shattered now. I can only hope that she learns to live a more humble and earnest life going forward. As for me, I continue to enjoy my life, painting pictures and spending time with my daughter and husband. Our family of 3 gets along wonderfully, and I'm excited that we will soon become a family of 4, including the baby on the way. I intend to keep doing everything I can to protect my family's happiness.